People, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning back in each and every time. Apologies for the late loan report, but you know me, I've got a bag of content to do. I've got a bag of things to do in my life and in YouTube, and sometimes you just don't get the time. But better late than never. Now, you know, a couple of our young players sadly isn't playing, like Matt Smith, Ben Shafe, Daniel Ballard played no part in relation to me reporting on this loan report. But it was an interesting one for me because, looking at it, when I look at Maitland-Niles, Joe Willock and Saliba in particular, one's playing for Newcastle against Chelsea, the other for West Brom against Manchester United, and the other for Nice against PSG. And as we know, all these teams are an important part of their season. And as much as, they're playing for weaker teams against a stronger team, I like to see how they equip themselves in bigger games. For West Brom, I want to see Maitland-Niles. Like I said, when Maitland-Niles went out on loan, typically he's part of the Arsenal team that cannot break down a low block. For West Brom, he's going to have to be part of that low block. He's going to have to concentrate for 90 minutes and be able to defend and stay in position. He's going to need to show his qualities. The romance is dead, for us, Joe Willock and Maitland, the Hayland boys and blah, blah, blah. Steve Bruce and them man there just want to know, can you help us in our quest for what we're doing? West Brom are trying to stay in the league. They don't care for Maitland-Niles, and if you want to play for England and stuff, play well for us. The rest takes care of it. Nice are trying to pattern their season, and playing against PSG, it doesn't matter how good Saliba is on the ball. I want to see, can you defend people? If we look at Maitland-Niles, I'll give him a 5 out of 10 for the game against West Brom. First things first, it's the quality on the ball. Sometimes it needs to, he hasn't had... I think he's had 2 decent games considering he's barely played, and the way Big Sam Allardyce speaks about him it inclines me to believe he's going to get more opportunities, and we need to allow him to get fully fit and get that confidence. But I do think his standard of passing needs to improve. I do think it was a so-so game against for West Brom. West Brom caught United cold. I think his passing needs to improve. Definitely if he's going to play in midfield, because I think there was 2 incidences. I'm sure you've all seen on Match of the Day and the highlights where, obviously if he sorts his decision-making out, West Brom probably nick all 3 points and get 2 extra vital points, which could help them in a delicate season where they're trying to stay in the division, people. Instead, his decision-making was poor and the chance came to nothing, and United, could breathe a sigh of relief. They're the sort of things where on another day, a next manager might not ever play Maitland-Niles again, because they might look at it, boy, I'm trying to stay in this division. We've played well. You've just cheated off for 2 points, 2 vital 2 points off a team that's second, third in the league. You might not ever play again. Now, fortunately, Sam Allardyce bigs him up and stuff, but this is how real football is. I did think Maitland initially played quite well. I think, he was presenting some problems down the left-hand side, United's right, for Wan-Bissaka when he did go out there. I think he did very well helping, on the left, peeling out to the left-hand side from the centre mid position and filling in out there. Also in centre mid, I think him and Gallagher in particular mocked in well. I think he won the ball back well. I think he did have some nice distributions of his, but I think he was up for it for the first half. But I just feel he's let himself down. With that, I did think his decision-making at times was very so-so, sometimes overhitting and underhitting passes. A lot of people will focus on when he could have won the game for West Brom. I look at it when he could have lost the game for West Brom. I think it was to mark the end of the first half. I could be wrong. But United fans will probably remember, because their players were going livid. It's a corner for Manchester United, a corner against Manchester United. Apologies. West Brom have taken it. Maitland-Niles has played a poor pass and it's been intercepted. And it looked like, against the best counter-attacking team, arguably in the league, Man United, they probably would have scored. The ref saved his bacon. The concentration has to be there. I'm not going to lie, based on the 2 games, I don't think you've convinced anyone of your capabilities of playing in midfield. But end of the day, you're playing on a regular basis. End of the day, you've got 180 minutes under your belt, which you might not have got at Arsenal. So I think it was a 5 out of 10 for him. But again, the passing, especially if you're going to play centre midfield at Arsenal or elsewhere, it needs to improve. Now, Joe Willock had the debut for Newcastle to remember. It was a fantastic debut from him, but he somewhat brought down to reality. I think he was a 5 out of 10. I think he did what he could. It was a poor team performance from Newcastle, especially, the midfield were getting ran rings around. I think they were second best. I think Chelsea were quite sluggish by their own standards, but I just think he struggled like his teammates. I think his passing was good. He kept it simple. He tried to put in the shift, but he just simply second best over every department like everyone, and was anonymous in his 70-odd minutes. It's an important, learning curve for him, of course, and stuff like that, but nothing too tough to write home about Joe Willock, really and truly. And again, the interesting thing is, regardless of if it's, the mixed 2 weeks they've both had, you've learned a lot because you're playing first-team football, and hopefully both can come back to Arsenal and progress at some capacity. If not, we've got a decision to make, and I hope we can make top dollar. Now, moving away from that, Joe Willock against Chelsea, Maitland-Niles against Man United. You've got Saliba, William Saliba against for Nice against PSG. Now with William Saliba, I know you know, like you saw in this game for Nice against PSG, closer game than many people thought. They ran them down to the wire. They lost the game 15 minutes before the end of the game. 75th minute, Moise Kean scored. We'll get on to the second goal they conceded in a bit. Like I said, I know he can play football. You know, he's very cultured. We know he's very much the modern day defender. He can, you know, he's a Rolls Royce of a defender. And I'm sure it must have been clipped up on the socials now, you know, incidences against PSG where he's under pressure and most players would have just put their foot through it. But he's showing the calmness to, you know, you could say it's bravery or stupidity, depending on how it pays off. But he's bringing the ball out convincingly from the back and all of these sort of things there and doing it quite well. You saw, you know, for me in the 34th minute, as you can see, lovely dribble under pressure to get it back and get out from the back and distribute it to his forward players. You know, he showed his passing range with quality short and long range passing. I don't feel in relation to the first goal he's at fault, but I do think the team could have read the situation in the build up to that goal a bit better. Nobody's looking over shoulders. I did think second goal I could attribute the blame to him because literally 75 minutes from time, and this is where Nice showed their inexperience. I did feel initially it's a whole team error because I feel the cross could have been stopped. I did feel Saliba and his left back at times they're not following their PSG men. They're allowing them to get caught. They're allowing the winger to get in between that space between centre half and fullback, and you can't afford to do that. You know, they've switched off. For 2-1, the cross has come in. It's gone to the back post. You know, Saliba's not aware of where Icardi is. I think it was Icardi. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Not aware where Icardi is. The left back hasn't tucked in enough. Icardi's unchallenged. He's headed it back across. And Moise Kean, his Italian teammate and PSG teammate, has scored. Like I said, I think Nice gave a good account of himself. They ran it to the wire. Even Maurice, the former Lorient man that was linked with Arsenal, he hit the post. I think they gave a good account of himself, but they showed their young naivety. Largely, I think the partnership of Todibo and Saliba did well. Both of them are two young French centre-halves where most people said they've left France too early. You know, Todibo's been at, I'm sure he's been at Schalke on loan and it didn't work for him at Barca. Saliba, it ain't worked out for him so far at Arsenal. But I think that partnership did quite well. You know, Saliba on the left, Todibo on the right. I think they did quite well against PSG. I think they frustrated PSG. I think, you know, they did all right. Ultimately, they engineered their own mistakes, really. But yeah, man, this is the games I'm looking for. Now, it was an interesting week, people, because it was a 1-1 draw in the Stuttgart versus Hertha Berlin game. Mavropanos against Guendouzi, two of our lone players. Mavropanos, again, enhancing his reputation. And for Mavropanos, if he can stay fit, depending on what happens with our, you know, there's talk of signing a centre-half at Arsenal. There's still a lot of centre-halves on our books. I do think he at least deserves the right to go to pre-season, having signed the new deal last year, and at least for a couple of weeks, show Arteta what he can and can't do, people, really and truly. I would like to see him become a first-team player of some sort. Equally, I would like to make dollar on him. He almost scored from Mavropanos. He almost scored with a towering header. It was a quite entertaining game. Khedira came on and set up someone younger than him. I think technically Khedira could be Luka Netz's dad. You know me, I love Luka Netz. Watched a lot of him in youth league. You know, he's made 7 or so appearances in the Bundesliga. First time I found out about him, he was a left winger, you know, and then when I started seeing him at youth level a bit more, they started moving him to left wing back, and he's been playing there primarily for Hertha Berlin. He came off the bench and bagged late on for them, people, which was quite good. It was a very entertaining game. You know, Guendouzi was good with his passing, solid on the ball as usual. Really nothing to really write home for them two individual players. I think they both gave a good account of themselves, people, but it was a fantastic game from a neutral point of view, man, really and truly. So yeah, big up Guendouzi and Mavropanos, really and truly. In relation to our academy players, this guy, you know, Matt Smith, he's still up there for me to probably be lone player of the year based on what was happening at Swindon. He played no part in the 3-2 defeat for Charlton against Gillingham. Ben Shafe played no part in the 2-0 defeat against Norwich. Buendia scored, though, for those of you who are on Buendia watch. Harry Clark wasn't involved for Oldham as they played Forest Green Rovers. McGuinness got 90 minutes in the 0-0 against Northampton. I think it was a better game from him. I think he read the game better. I think he had better balance because sometimes he does overplay. Sometimes he's a bit rash. I think he looked decent from what I saw. So a good account of himself for the young centre-half. Almost feel sorry for McGuinness, Clark, I guess Shafe can play there, and Ballard in that is and Medley to a degree, and that's probably unlikely any of you break into the Arsenal first team just because of the amount of bodies. But I do think Arsenal should be looking to make money on these players, and I think they're all giving good account of themselves. So yeah, it was a bit of disappointment for these lot because none of these three played at the time of making this. Hopefully they play at the weekend. You know, Zach Medley's out there at Kilmarnock. He had an interesting loan spell at Gillingham. I think on the large part is positive, and there's a lot that he could have built upon. No shame in losing 1-0 to Rangers. It was a committed performance. I think he gave a good account of himself. He was part of a good collective committed performance. He did quite well. Ultimately, they lost people, but he got 90 minutes, which was the crucial thing. And he's playing against some good players. You know, Rangers are flying high. So this is experience you can't buy. Between being dropped and playing consistently at Gillingham according to your performances, playing against high-flying Rangers, this is no that you can't substitute, there's no substitute for experience. This is much better than playing 23 football. And I think all of these players, whether we speak about the ones playing at the top level with the Salibas and the Maitlands and these ones, they're all developing. It's better. Minutes are currency, people. You don't always have to go on loan and things like that. You can't be impatient, but I do think, they're all going to come back to Arsenal better players. And I think forget about Arsenal Football Club. Primarily, I want them all to benefit it in some capacity, whether that's first teamers or loans. I think they've all taken the right steps in their careers to try and play football and develop people. So on that note, it is what it is, people. On that note, man, that's that in relation to my loan report. I'm going to get out of here. I'm not going to bore you lot anymore. Please comment, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Please make sure you follow me on all my socials. Links are in the description. If nothing more, follow me on Clubhouse and Instagram, DeludedGuna04 on everything, but those two in particular on the two apps I've just said. On that note, though, people, Deluded, I'm out. Thank you for watching and listening as I speak about the loan players.